Hello everyone and welcome to the release webinar for SquaredUp version 4.6. All right, excellent. It sounds like audio is going, so we'll kick off. So this is John Shaw, CPO at SquaredUp. I'm joined by another John, so that's me on the left, and that's the other John on the right. So I'd like to welcome John Knowles, who's our new Director of Product Management, and John is actually going to talk us through what's in 4.6. So he'll be doing most of the talking and a little bit of demoing today as well. So
if the demo gods are with me, John.
If the demo gods are with you, excellent. So talking of luck being on our side, of course, I'm sure as most of you are listening from home, we are broadcasting from home as well. So this is the first time we've done one of these webinars, not from our office in the UK. We bear with us. We both have families, so there may well be some background noise. We'll try and keep that to a minimum, but do forgive us if you hear the occasional background interruption. All right, so let's kick off. So SquaredUp version 4.6. We're going to give you a quick sort of reminder of the roadmap, where we are on that roadmap. Then John will take us through what's in 4.6. in sort of summary form, just in slides, and take us through the sort of each of the big features that it's in there, with a little bit of demoing as well. We'll talk to you about how you can get it, and then give you a chance to ask us any questions that you have at the end. Do type questions into the chat as we go as well. If we can answer them as we go, we will, and we'll try and pick any others that we don't catch up at the end. All right, so roadmap first. So we back in March, we did the GA of version 4.5, and that was actually our first kind of feature release after the big one back in October of last year, which was when we launched SquaredUp for Azure. So from October of last year, we actually built onto the same code base 2 different products, so SquaredUp for SCOM and SquaredUp for Azure. A lot of features were packed in there. It took us a while of kind of stabilizing and settling down before we added features into 4.5. There were some pretty cool things in 4.5, so visualizing Azure logs on both SCOM and Azure, actually you can do that. Alert donuts and heat maps and all sorts of things on the Azure side, as well as things like dark theme and pinning of perspectives on the SCOM side. So that was in March, and we said at that point that we wanted to get onto a more regular, frequent release schedule every 2 to 3 months, and we've managed that with 4.6. So that's what we're about to talk to you about today. I will say 4.6 is probably, it's not as feature-packed as 4.5 was, and that's partly because obviously it's been less time in the making, but also because we've concentrated on some very important sort of foundational work in 4.6 that makes for a stronger product, but maybe doesn't make for as many headline features, let's say. But there's still some pretty cool stuff in there, so I'll hand over to John, and he can tell you that some of the cool things that are in there, and he'll talk a bit about Azure stuff first, and then SCOM stuff. So for those of you who are SCOM customers, hang with us. There's some cool stuff coming for you too. So John, over to you.
Great, thank you, John. So yes, thank you everyone for joining this release webinar. It's my first at SquaredUp, so I'm really excited to be here and tell you about what we're releasing today. So version 4.6, it's a quick summary for you. We've got some enhancements going into the Azure cost tiles, with some new dashboards and bits and pieces, and we'll dig into the detail of that in a minute. We're also announcing support for Lighthouse. So if you're got Azure with multiple tenants that you need to manage, then we are fully compatible with Lighthouse now. We have been working hard on the marketplace deployments from Azure, so just to make that process a little bit simpler for customers as they're starting out their journey from on-premise into the cloud. And across both the Azure and SCOM products, we've had some enhancements for open access. So in version 4.5, we announced dark theme for SCOM. Biggest feature request that came after that release was we want dark theme in our open access dashboards. So that's what we're delivering today in this release. We've also put some work into some of the underpinnings for how installations and upgrades work. This is being shown here with some dashboard pack upgrades. We'll talk a little bit about that in more detail in a minute, and some underlined in hardening of the product from a security perspective as well. We'll discuss that in a bit too. Okay, so Azure Cost Enhancements. One of the biggest features that people tell us about when it comes to our Azure products is how they can get better insights into where they're spending their money in Azure. So we've taken that feedback on board and made a number of enhancements to the cost management features. The first of those is the subscriptions dashboard. So out of the box, you get a dashboard which shows you what your subscriptions are within your tenant. And we've enhanced that to include some cost tiles there as well. So now you can see the total cost across all of your across all of your subscriptions, and then you've got the sunburst, which allows you to get a bit more information about the costs within those particular subscriptions. We're also introducing a brand new overview dashboard, which will show you the cost of your whole tenant, or in the case of a Lighthouse setup, multiple tenants. This will show you some trend lines over time. So you've got trending cost over 7 days, trending cost over 30 days. Again, the sunburst gives you a very quick and easy way to drill into more information about that to get better insights from it. And then the tree map showing you cost by resources at the bottom. As you roll over each segment in there, it will highlight the different groupings of resources. So if you were to roll over a virtual machine, you would see all the other virtual machine boxes pop up, which is pretty cool. In addition to these new dashboard enhancements, we're also introducing better drill down, fully interactive drill down into the cost segments. So you can see in the picture here, we're rolled over this particular resource group, and you can actually drill down from that segment or into a particular resource itself. So if you rolled over a specific resource segment, you could click onto there and get to the underlying dashboard underneath. And as part of these enhancements, we also realized that as you're rolling over these different segments, it would be really useful to see which 5 resources are costing the most within that particular resource group. So as you roll over a subscription or as you roll over a resource group, you will see the top 5 costing resources within that highlighted segment, which is a pretty neat feature. Helps you get some really good insights into where you're spending your money. Okay, so moving on. With Azure Lighthouse, for those of you who aren't familiar, Lighthouse is a feature or a bit of functionality in Microsoft Azure Cloud Platform that brings together multiple tenants. So if you're managing more than one tenant, Lighthouse is a way of bringing a single view of that together. This is an area that many service providers, cloud service providers, managed service providers, or even large enterprises have challenges in this area because it becomes quite cumbersome to manage tenants independently. And what we're saying today is that SquaredUp is now fully supported in a Lighthouse environment. So you can have that single pane of glass across multiple tenants. You can manage your customers' environments much more easily, much more efficiently. And you could even create dashboards which have a multi-tenanted view or even a single-tenanted view. We know we have some limitations in this area, so you would need to use things like Azure tagging to be able to tag which resource groups potentially are part of a particular tenant. But these are some areas of functionality that we're looking to improve in the future. Moving swiftly on into Azure Marketplace deployments, we've done some extensive testing of various different sized virtual machines to ensure that when you're setting up a SquaredUp from the marketplace, you get the right sized VM for your use cases. You can choose the smaller ones here if you're in a sort of pre-production environment or you want to test out some new dashboard ideas that you're working on, right up to the big ones where you might have 10, 50, 100 users with a sort of a much bigger virtual machine. So we've fully validated against different virtual machines, and these are now provided as part of the deployment from Azure Marketplace. We've also made it easier to get a security certificate. So we've baked in SSL certificates as part of that deployment process. We're using Let's Encrypt, and the Let's Encrypt certificates will automatically renew every 30 days. So gone are the scary browser warning messages that Chrome or Edge or Firefox might present if you didn't have a security certificate in place. So that's part of the deployment as you set up from the Azure Marketplace. And just as a gentle reminder, if you're setting up Azure SquaredUp for Azure for the first time, you do need to have the Azure AD administrator rights. and we are just prompting people at various points in the installation process just to say, hey, just so you know, you need to have the right level of permissions to get this installed and set up correctly. So moving on to the sort of cross-products enhancements. In 4.6 for SCOM and Azure, we are bringing out dark theme for our open access dashboards. Open access, for those of you who aren't familiar with this, is a really great way of sharing dashboards across your organization. It doesn't require additional users. You can put them up onto wall boards in your office, or share them really easily as people are remote working with any users who don't actually have a login to SquaredUp. And the new feature that we're adding today is the ability to have a dark theme for those wallboards. You can set that up in the open access configuration. So no longer will your monitors be shining brightly. You can have a nice trendy dark theme mode instead. And dashboard pack upgrades. So out of the box, SquaredUp includes a number of dashboard packs to help you get started really quickly and easily with the products, get you some value out of our products instantly. Now when customers upgrade, we will actually be able to upgrade those dashboard packs for you. So any fixes that we put in, any enhancements, any new dashboards that we've developed, like the cost one we saw earlier, will automatically be installed as part of an upgrade. And if you've changed those dashboards, the out-of-the-box ones previously, you don't need to worry about the conflicts. As soon as you log into the product, there's a helpful wizard that will step you through the process of how to get your changes or our changes into production. You can either keep your copy, you can keep our copy, or in fact, keep them both and then make the updates afterwards. So behind the scenes, the less glamorous stuff, we've been beefing up the security within SquaredUp. Vast majority of customers will not see any difference in how the product behaves. The main use cases here are typically where you've got multiple SCOM groups and you want to embed a SquaredUp dashboard inside another SquaredUp. And there's some really simple whitelisting configuration you can do to enable that functionality to work as it would normally do. And it wouldn't be a release if we hadn't fixed a few bugs. And I think the team have done an outstanding job in the shorter time frame they've had in actually fixing over 30 bugs. We regularly prioritize these, working with customer support, looking at the most important bugs for you. And the team have done a really good job here, getting rid of 30 of those out of the backlog. If you want more detail on which bugs have been resolved, please do head over to support.squaredup.com and check out the what's new and release notes for this release, which are published today. Okay, so that's a quick overview of what's new in 4.6, and now I'll dive into a quick demo. Okay, so first of all, we'll take a look at the cost in Azure. And the first change that people are likely to see is the subscriptions dashboard, as I mentioned. You can see here we've got the updates to the subscriptions dashboard, which includes more cost information. You've got the total cost over the last 30 days shown in a big scalar number. And then we've got the sunburst giving more detail about the cost of all the resources underneath. Now let's take a look at the new cost overview dashboard. So this is going to go off and it's going to call the Microsoft APIs to get cost information across all of my subscriptions and in fact all of my tenants. I'm actually in a multi-tenanted setup here, so I'm getting cost information from subscriptions in I think 2 or 3 different tenants. We can see here we've got the trend line over time where we've been managing our costs really well since we've been using SquaredUp internally, and that's relatively flat for us over the last 7 days, and same again over the last 30 days. So we're keeping on top of our costs really well here. As I roll over some of the tree view segments, if I select virtual machines, you can see here that whilst virtual machines isn't the biggest single cost that we've got, it actually makes up quite a large proportion of our overall Azure cost. As you can see, all the segments there are highlighted that are costing money. Lots of small ones over on the right-hand side, but some sort of medium-sized sections in the middle. So it's a good way to get some quick insights onto what types of resources is your organization spending the most money on.
So, John, I think it's worth saying as well. We're showing our own environment here. So, this actually is the cost trend for our own spend on Azure. And you know, when we first started using our product, the trend line was pointing upwards. We were spending more and more every month. We run pretty much everything we do runs in Azure, and we quickly started using our dashboards to spot where we were spending the most money, and you can see we've now got the line nice and flat, even though we've actually been increasing the amount that we've done in Azure even over the last month. So certainly we've experienced the power of being able to see these costs ourselves, and it's got a lot of attention from some of the early adopters of SquaredUp for Azure. So and on that note, we've had a couple of questions come in actually related to cost. So one was, well, this is sort of cost plus Lighthouse. So can you see the costs across all of your Lighthouse customer tenants? And so the answer to that is yes. So in that sunburst that John is showing, that's actually a couple of different Azure tenants, and you can see each of the subscriptions in the middle. What we can't do yet is let you actually scope it to an individual tenant. So we will show you all of the subscriptions across all the tenants that the logged in user has rights to see. So it won't surprise you to learn that we have been asked to be able to scope by tenant, and that's certainly something we're looking at moving forward. There
are ways so you can use
go ahead,
tags in Azure exactly to tag up things that belong to particular tenants, but we do want to make that an easier experience in the future.
Yeah, you can also build dashboards. If you know the subscriptions in each tenant, you can build dashboards just for those subscriptions, which will scope it just to a particular customer's subscriptions then. The other question we've had related is, what about CSPs? Right now, again, John, I'll attempt to answer it, and you can then tell me where I get it wrong. But right now, we can show you costs that come through the Azure Cost Management APIs. If you're on the kind of the new, what they were, I think, calling the modern plan, I think it's now just the Azure plan or something. If you're on that pricing model, then that should apparently show through the Azure Cost Management APIs. If you were on the original CSP pricing, that doesn't. It comes through a different API, and unfortunately, we don't have a way to show that. So once you're on the new one, it should show, and do let us know if anything's not working there. Okay, thank you for that.
It's worth noting at that point that the cost figures that come through from the Microsoft APIs are based on retail. So if you have an agreement with Microsoft where there's a discount applied, we don't see that discount. The discount can't be displayed in the dashboard. So it is always the retail cost that the APIs report back. So that's what
it's what your customer would be paying you at retail, regardless of what you're actually charging them.
That's correct, yeah. So if we look down, next on the cost side is the drill down. So you can now drill down into any of these segments. So if I select Parts Unlimited, one of our example sort of public facing websites, I can select that segment and go straight into the perspective or the dashboard of that particular resource group, which is really useful. So once you've identified a big area of spending, you can get straight into the resource group or even the resources of that and see what is it all about. We've also built some example dashboards here that I'd like to show. So I've got an example application summary dashboard. This is potentially for public-facing websites or for critical services that you might provide to your organization. And what we can see here is the four shown side by side. And you can start to build in sort of simple cost tiles into those to really give teams a different feeling for what services they're providing and how much is it costing to run. There might be a really important service that's costing a huge amount of money, and be able to show that in contrast to other services that aren't so important but are costing more money could be a really useful tool for helping teams understand the impact of what they're doing and what they're proposing to do. Okay, so we'll take a look at open access for in Dark Theme now. Let's just log into my SCOM environment. So let's go to this one. Okay, so I've got SCOM, SquaredUp for SCOM set up here. I'm going to create an open access dashboard for this availability dashboard. I'll enable it. and just copy that there. When I open this up in a new tab, this would be the URL that you would show on a wallboard. This could be the URL that you share out via email, put it in a Slack channel as a pinned item, however it is you need to send it out to other people. It then renders an image of that dashboard, so it can be viewed by any number of users that you need across your organization. So now we have the dashboard shown in light theme. So this is the functionality that everyone has today in version 4.5 and before. So a really great way of sharing dashboards. But what a lot of customers have asked for is we want this in dark theme. We have a wallboard we have a wallboard set up, and we need this to be shown with a dark theme instead. So to be able to do that, it's really simple. Go into the system settings for SquaredUp. Head straight over to Open Access and enable Dark Theme. This is a setting that will affect all of the dashboards that are shared via Open Access. So you can't do it individually on dashboard by dashboard level, but it is set at a global level. And when I come back and refresh this page, a new image will be rendered in Dark Theme. So hopefully this is the functionality that everyone's been dying out for, John. There we go. So much.
If only we could make New Relic appear in dark. If only we could make New Relic appear in dark theme as well, John. But there we go. That's
yes, you don't ask so much, do you?
So and that does. I hope that answers one of the questions we had in the channel as well, which is it is global setting for all open access. So you can still, individual users can go in and personalize to light or dark theme, but all of your open access will either will be in dark theme or in light theme. So it's a global setting.
That's right, because you'll see here as I'm actually using the interactive part of SquaredUp, I don't have dark theme enabled here because my personal settings, I prefer light theme when I'm on my desktop, but I prefer dark theme when I'm sharing this on a wallboard, for example. So it is independent of your personalization settings, that's right. Okay, let's get back to the slides. Hang on. Okay, so availability. 4.6 release candidate is available now. Please head over to downloads.squaredup.com and you can get your copy of SCOM and Azure 4.6 today. We'll send out the normal follow-up email afterwards with the recording. And just so you know, we do support our release candidates in production. So feel free to install it today and start taking advantage of this new functionality. We recommend you can do in-place upgrades. You don't need to do a side-by-side. There's no breaking changes. And also worth knowing that we give priority support for release candidate customers. We hope general availability will be sometime later this month, second half of May.
And just a couple of quick comments on that. Sorry, John, just so the SquaredUp for Azure product is available for download right now, and if you're a current customer of SquaredUp for Azure, that's the way we'd recommend you go to upgrade. It does take a little while for Microsoft to catch up with us, so we hope the marketplace version will be on 4.6 very soon, but right now it isn't. So we're waiting for that to go through their systems.
Yes, that'll go through later this week, I believe.
Fingers crossed.
Fingers crossed. Also, we really love getting your feedback. So I just wanted to put my personal email address out there and say, I love hearing from customers, I love hearing what users are doing with our product. If you've got examples of dashboards you've built that are really helping you during this difficult time that we're all going through at the moment, or if you've got general feedback, maybe there's an area of the product you'd like to see improved, maybe there's a cool feature that you've thought of, please send all of your suggestions and feedback straight over to me, or go through our support teams, and we'll all work very closely together. So just wanted to put that out there. Also, we're also looking for new customers who can help us evaluate features for the future as well. So we may have some prototypes that we'd like to get out there. I need more contacts to put on my list of candidates for that as well. So please take down my name, email address, and feel free to drop me a line. Okay, back over to you, John.
Very good, thank you, John, and thank you for sharing your email address with everyone. If you didn't manage to catch it, you can always email support and they'll put you through to us. It's very simple. Everyone to do with the product is called John. We like to keep it nice and simple for you. That's a nice quick summary of what's in 4.6. We're not going to stop there. We're keeping on adding new features into both the SCOM and the Azure versions, and we plan to do that every 2 to 3 months. We've got a lot of features in the backlog. That's just some examples you'll see in the list there. The most important thing for us is to hear from you what you would like to hear us do to see us do next. So do take John up on his offer and send us your suggestions and kind of tell us what's the highest priority for you. Some of the things we're looking at include improving the out-of-the-box experience for SCOM, so making it easier, for example, to set up enterprise apps in SCOM. Scoping on tenants, there we go. We did that. We didn't prepare this slide on the fly. That was already in there. So we are looking at, for those of you who are using Lighthouse to manage multiple tenants, let you define different tiles by tenant, and then many more things besides. So I won't read down through all of that list. As I say, what we'd really love to hear from you is what would you like to see us do next. Fantastic. So thank you so much for joining us. I think we've got a couple more questions that we didn't answer that we should try and handle now. Just looking down through the list, we've covered the cost breakdown one. One that came up was what about clouds that aren't Azure? So other clouds are available. Well, I guess that's one of the things that we would love to hear from you. If you're working with clouds that aren't Azure, we'd love to hear from you kind of what your dashboarding needs are. We don't have a product for non-Azure right now. We are looking at doing something that will be kind of not tied to a particular cloud that may meet your needs. It's a bit of a longer term investment for us, but for those of you who are interested in that, in non-Azure clouds, then or sort of non-cloud specific dashboards, do get in touch, please. We'd love to talk to you and hear about what you need. We also had a question about currency. So I think you actually saw, as John whizzed by, on the scalar view of the cost tiles, when you just have the number in there, it does show you the currency and it'll pick that currency up from Azure Cost Management. So in whatever currency Microsoft's billing you, that's how we show those numbers. So however you're billed for the particular subscription, the numbers are in that currency. We don't show the currency right now in the tree map and sunburst views, but although we have had a couple of requests from people that would be useful to do. Okay, so I think that's handled. We handled some of the other questions we went through. If I didn't manage to get to your particular question, we will go through carefully afterwards and make sure we follow up with you. So thank you very much, everyone, for joining us. We will share a recording of this. If your attention was distracted by kids or others as you were going, you can whiz through the recording and catch what you missed, or share that with colleagues afterwards. Thank you very much, and happy dashboarding to you all.
Great. Thank you, John. Yes, thank you everyone for joining. We'll see you next time.